Now, the Buffalo Bills depth chart, courtesy of ourlads.com. So, of course, we want to thank ourlads.com for providing us these very good depth charts. But again, just temporary because the season hasn't started yet. Yeah. But Buffalo Bills quarterback depth chart looking like this. Josh Allen at quarterback, Mitch Trubisky behind him, and Jake Fromm.
Quarterback controversy.
I almost lost my breath there. A little overclumped. Running back, we got Zack Moss, Devin Singletary, Matt Breida, who they just paid $1.1 million to, and Tywan Jones at wide receiver. Stefon Diggs, one of the best dynasty assets out there today.
Matt.
Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, who they also just signed and paid him $6 million. Isaiah Hodgins, Jake Kumaro, Duke Williams. At tight end, real skimpy. I mean, if we were going swimming, this would be it'd be hot being this skimpy, but we're not. Dawson Knox,
football. Yep.
Tommy Sweeney, Jacob Hollister.
Sweeney Todd.
No. Tommy Sweeney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, close though. Yeah, give it up there, Giant Up. So let's just start right there at tight end. Super thin. I still think there's a very good chance they end up with Zach Ertz. I think it's them or Indianapolis. But if not, they're giving Dawson Knox, the former third-round pick, a lot of time here because they didn't do anything. Tommy Sweeney, Jacob Hollister, serviceable NFL tight ends, but not dynasty tight ends. And obviously Dawson Knox has got to come in here. He's got to produce because he just can't catch the football. And we talked about him on one of our sneaky kind of buy low episodes. And right now, his best game came in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. He had 6 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. But he actually scored a touchdown in both playoff games. But right now, his hands have been a complete disaster. What do you think about Dawson Knox? Do you think he's just a tight end too? Which is, if you're a mid-range tight end too, you might as well be a ghost.
I mean, I think he has upside. Obviously, we've mentioned it on the podcast before that he was late to the game as far as making the switch to tight end. Was it quarterback that he played?
Yep.
Before that? Yeah. So, I mean, I think he has some untapped potential, and he did go out in the offseason and work with a hand-eye coordination specialist in order to kind of clean up some of those hands issues. I mean, I think this is one of those, this is his third year, and it's make or break for him. And they don't have a lot behind him. I think Jacob Hollister is the next closest thing to a fantasy producer from the tight end position. And I think if he falters, they'll bring him in because I think Hollister, he has a rapport going back to college with Josh Allen, and he can catch passes. That's what he's good at. That's what he does. So he's not necessarily the best blocker, but he's a guy that can go out there and catch passes.
Which all that matters for fantasy football.
Yeah, so this is the make or break, I think, for Dawson Knox here with the Bills.
What could help Dawson Knox would actually probably hurt the team overall, but there's a lot of questions about what could potentially happen with Cole Beasley. He said that he could just walk away right now and be fine. There's a lot of controversy around him.
And that's to go in a little deeper, it centers all around the protocols for COVID. He does not want to get the vaccine, and he's basically, I'm going to retire if they put up sanctions against players that do have COVID or that won't get the COVID vaccine.
Exactly. And so if that does happen, that doesn't help necessarily the team and the wide receiver core, but it would potentially give a slight boost to Dawson Knox value for fantasy football because Stefon Diggs is going to get Stefon Diggs no matter what. But sure. Gabe Davis and Emmanuel Sanders are probably going to be doing some more big things down the field. A lot of the underneath stuff was typically Cole Beasley. And so Dawson Knox could maybe steal some of those targets. I think that's best case scenario for him. But we're still looking at a guy that's a dart throw.
Yeah, and Cole Beasley, if something happens with him here, it is a big loss for some people because Cole Beasley last year was a championship caliber player, which
82 receptions.
Yeah, I mean a wide receiver too, essentially, which is a championship caliber player. These are the perfect kind of players that you would want to target when you're making a championship a run. Players that you can get, they're going to give you wide receiver 2 numbers for a steep discount. Cole Beasley could have been had for a third going into last season, and he would have helped you win a fantasy football championship. And right now, we don't know where it's going to go because if he does not make the team, 48% of the targets last year went to either Stefon Diggs or Cole Beasley. That's where Josh Allen was going. And Josh Allen, somebody who on first down, he would throw the football a ton. I mean, this is somebody who would come out and just get rid of the football right away. They threw a ton on first down, and they were the recipients. Obviously, Stefon Diggs, a wide receiver 1. Cole Beasley, a wide receiver 2. And then, like you mentioned, they signed Emmanuel Sanders, stretch the field. Gabe Davis, the big second-year wide receiver. He can see an uptick there. But maybe Emmanuel Sanders can slide in that Cole Beasley role. Maybe he could end up being a sneaky wide receiver 3.
He could be.
Low-end wide receiver 2. I would lean towards wide receiver 3 at his age.
I was going to say,
that's where the value might be.
Traditionally, I think Emmanuel Sanders worked down the field a little bit more. But now that he's getting older, he's coming off an Achilles, he might be able to slide right into a role where he's working the underneath. He's getting open on these short routes, similar to a Cole Beasley if they do end up trying to like move on from him. And there's rumors from one of the beat writers, I believe, said they could move on from him just so he's not a distraction. So it might not even be that he retires. They might just cut him if he threatens to retire.
Sure.
And the money lines up, they would save $4 million against the cap if they did decide to move on from Cole Beasley. So it's not something that's out of the realm of possibilities from a financial standpoint. So I guess we'll see how that one shakes out. I certainly think they have enough talent at the wide receiver position that if they decided to, they could. I don't think it would be a great move because I think Cole Beasley and Josh Allen have a good rapport.
They do.
So I don't think that'd be the smartest move from that standpoint. But if they just want to eliminate a distraction and kind of, I don't know if he's become a cancer in the locker room or distraction in the locker room, saying, you know, like, guys don't get vaccines and they really want guys to get vaccines. Well, I mean, who the heck knows, you know? So if they do end up moving on from Cole Beasley, it's probably for a bunch of reasons that don't have to do with football.
It's an interesting situation to monitor because this is a team that produced 2 high-end wide receivers, and look for them to do the same this year. Everything's still in place. You still got Brian Dable there, who will be a head coach most likely in 2022. Like I mentioned, no team threw the ball more, even on first down, than the Buffalo Bills. Like literally no team. They threw on first down 62% of the time. This is a team like to throw the ball because Josh Allen took a massive step forward into this season. And we're talking about a guy in his first couple seasons, he was only completing 56% of his passes.
It's Dayball and Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey, they paid and kept around. That's his quarterback coach, and they're kind of grooming him, I think, to be the eventual offensive coordinator.
Super smart quarterback, had high success there for Miami. Yeah. And, you know, Josh Allen, after the first couple of years, completing 56% of his passes, only threw for 5,163 yards, 30 touchdowns in his first couple of years, comes out last year and completes 69.2% of his passes. He threw for 4,544 yards and 37 touchdowns. I have never in my life seen a quarterback of somebody coming out that I was really worried about as a prospect. His arm was always one of the most beautiful things, but his accuracy was like somewhat of an issue. Come out and put it together like he did. To take this massive leap forward, not only with his yards, with his touchdowns, but with his accuracy, almost at 70%. And he's basically everything you would have hoped Cam Newton could be. This big, strong, powerful guy who can rush for first downs. He could rush for touchdowns. But all of a sudden now he's being really accurate with the football with a cannon for an arm. I mean, there's a reason for me. I don't know where you guys stand about Josh Allen, but Josh Allen for me is my quarterback number 2 overall in Dynasty Fantasy Football. I cannot pass up his rushing ability because some of those rushing quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, they don't have the frame to sustain that. You know, like as long as Cam Newton did, for example, where Cam Newton was a top 6 quarterback for 6-7 years there, Josh Allen can maintain that. But what he also brings now is showing that he could be potentially later down that Big Ben, big body pocket passer too when needed. So he offers all spectrums of that Dynasty Fantasy Football quarterback. If I was in a Superflex league, I would take Josh Allen number 2 overall.
He's number 2 on my list as well.
I think I have him at 3, but that's splitting hairs basically.
And it's for all those same reasons you just said. I mean, he came into the league and we knew that he had a huge arm and we knew he was going to add some rushing total. We didn't know how much, and then he kind of came on and that was his thing. That was how he was scoring points. But then he comes out and makes this huge leap from a passing standpoint and an accuracy standpoint. And like you said, like you'd mentioned, he's got the frame. He has a frame that will hold up. He is 250 pounds, you know what I mean? And he's 6'4". He can take a beating and keep on going. I think as he continues to evolve, if he does want to have this, you know, almost 20-year career, he's going to probably have to run a little bit less and throw a little bit more. But his trajectory as far as, the learning curve and how much he's improving in his passing, I think he can do that and still maintain a pretty high ceiling from a fantasy perspective.
And I think we can't overlook how much Stefon Diggs really helped him last year too, going from the receivers that he had before to a legitimate bona fide wide receiver one. Just adds so much more confidence for you as a passer, a guy that you're willing to take a chance on at times where, you might have held back before, or the DB might have made a play because your receiver's not going up and getting the ball the same way. So I think Stefon Diggs changed the mentality a lot for Josh Allen as well. And those two get to be, Stefon Diggs is in his prime. Those two are going to get to be together for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons. And I think we're going to see a lot of good fantasy football magic with that combo.
He's in all this without a strong running game, which, I expect to take a step forward this year. And he brings so much to the game. His legs and his power bring so much to the game. He's the only quarterback to ever rush for 7 touchdowns or more in his first 3 seasons in the league. Only quarterback to ever do that. Wow. He pounds it when it gets to the end zone. Like, again, he's kind of like what we hate about like Cam Newton. It's like, okay, you get inside the 5. You have the running back in Carolina, like Cam's going to run it in. Oh, there's D'Angelo Williams. Cam's going to run it in, though. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Josh Allen. He's going to hurt the running back there because when you're inside the 5, there's a high chance he's going to take it in there for the touchdown.
And at this point, none of the running backs have really established themselves as true bell cow, good running backs in the league. It'll be interesting to see the split between Singletary and Moss this year, and even maybe a little bit of Matt Breida sprinkled in there here and there because he's got the speed that the other two don't have. But it's going to be really tough to trust any one of those 3 guys on a consistent basis this year. I would assume that Zack Moss is going to be the most consistent, but even there, you would be thrilled if he ended up being running back 24.
I would be. I mean, as a person that has Zack Moss and got him, last year in the, I think, late second, I would be super happy if Zack Moss ended up anywhere in sniffing running back 2 numbers, personally.
Yeah. What sucks is that situation is it's going to be probably a 3-headed monster. Mm-hmm. Last year, when you're looking at touches, Devin Singletary out-touched Zack Moss 142 to 126. Now, Zack Moss did get the goal line area. So, like, the most important part is, like, who's going to get – if I'm going to take a running back, who's going to be the running back in the goal line for that potential? It was Zack Moss. And I like Zack Moss as a prospect. Really good contact balance, really good at making players miss. I think Zack Moss has a good chance to take a big step forward here because even though their offensive line was, like, okay last year, their running backs got hit on over 40% of their carries. They were dead last in the league. The Buffalo Bills running backs were dead last when it came to getting contact behind the line of scrimmage last year. So their running backs there weren't,
because they're so slow.
They weren't getting a really fair shake, and they're not explosive off the line there.
Yeah, that is one thing for sure.
So, they also is a team that were just not giving their running backs a lot of opportunity too. They were really took a big step forward in a passing game. This is a team that just averaged 21, a little slightly over 21 touches per game, which was in the bottom 3 of the NFL last year. So with those amount of touches right now, those running backs just didn't have the opportunity to come in and score like they wanted to. Now, Brian Daboll is a very innovative offensive coordinator. He did a really good job at like switching things up throughout the season.
Sure.
And going into the season, he might want to switch this now so you can't get a dead beat on these guys. And maybe they will get Zack Moss a little bit more involved. So going back to the running back, I am worried about a 3-headed monster. But I wouldn't call them a monster.
I wouldn't either.
A 3-headed puppy, right? Like, it's cute. Like, you want to pet it, but, I don't know if you want to take it home. If I did have to take one, if I did have to take one of these guys, like, right, like, hey, we got to cut this puppies. We can only save one. Who are you saving, right? We got to get rid of 2 of these heads. I'm sorry. I know nobody, tough decisions when you got puppies, right?
For me, it's Zack Moss. Breida's
Zack
Moss. He's not even guaranteed to be on this roster. The money says so. I mean, he's getting paid like the league minimum basically, and there's
1.1 million. Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, it's
so it's Devin Singletary or Zack Moss. Devin Singletary out-touched last year,
but Zack Moss also missed 3 games, so that plays into that. I would probably take Zack Moss barely. It is tempting in full point PPR leagues because I do think Devin Singletary will be the more active pass catching back. But at the end of the day, I just feel a little bit better about the overall volume that I believe Zack Moss will have.
Because they can produce there. Josh Allen helps. I mean, even though they were dead last in touches and they're really bad at getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage, as a group, they did average 5 yards per carry. I mean, they're top 13 when it came to actually yards per carry
Once
per game.
they get rolling, man. Once they get rolling.
I think there's a strong likelihood, though, that the leading rusher in 2022 is probably not on this team.
Most likely.
Most likely, unless Zack Moss establishes himself.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think he would have to take a big step forward because
I think
you
he's
look
the
at
only
that-
one that could.
You look at that offense, especially if they end up getting a guy like Zach Ertz, that's the only hole then. Their line's pretty solid overall. Good receiver, good quarterback. Like it's really just, can we get a running back so we don't have to have Josh Allen plunging in at the goal line?
It's the best gamble you can make. Now, it all depends where you're getting your information from. Like, what's the value on Zack Moss? Like, if you're a big fan of Michelle and Kate, the Ball Blast, our friends, the Ball Blast girls at Ball Blast, the Ball Blast podcast, there's another great podcast as well that does Dynasty and
they do a
is
great
full
job.
info. If you are a big fan of them, then Zack Moss is like
End all be all.
end all be all. You know what I mean? Like that. They think he's the second coming of. I don't know. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they love Zack Moss. So the price is going to be more
Thurman
valuable there.
Thomas,
Thurman Thomas.
another
Nice.
Buffalo Bills running back.
You know, Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders were on the same roster.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Isn't that insane?
Yep.
That's insane. I mean, you have Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas goes to Bills, and then Barry Sanders comes out and has literally the greatest college football year in the history of college football. My favorite running back of all time, Barry Sanders. The best.
He's amazing. Yeah.
So what would you pay? So if you had to buy Zack Moss, right? Like I came to you, I'm like, dude, you got to buy Zack Moss. What's the most you're paying for Zack Moss?
You don't have a choice.
You have to, sir.
You have to. I'm like Liam Neeson, and I'm like, listen,
I've got a very
I don't know where you are,
set of skills.
but if you don't have Zack Moss by the time I find you, I'm gonna take these skills and I'm gonna pay the bills.
Wow.
Oh, look at me, I'm an amateur rap artist all of a sudden.
Look at you.
Look
Then-
at me, hip hop anonymous.
If you put that kind of amazing,
What would you pay? Would you pay if you're a contender? You're a little thin at running back. You had Cam Akers, now you don't. Abracadabra. Orlando.
The most I would pay was a second. I wouldn't pay any more.
No,
No,
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like a late second.
that would be it. That's all I could do.
I would have to be confident that I was giving my pick, and I'm a true contender.
Okay.
Because I'm not giving anything in the top 15 or so.
I'm the same way. I'd pay anywhere from pick 2.8 to 2.12. I have no problem paying for Zack Moss and go for that upside because all running backs are in a hashtag 2 to 3 year window. All of them.